did spend some time living on the bus as a kid. There was a time where you actually dropped out of school.
Yes, just before Achimota school, because of those times where we were staying on the bus. The point is, you cannot afford anything, first of all. When I was about 12, I built my first wind generator. This is like the first time I'm sharing, but so what happened was that every day,
Hello, everyone, and welcome to I Too Can Do. So, this platform was created to spotlight young Africans who are not just excelling, but redefining what is actually possible for other young Africans to do. And today, I'm really honored to be joined by Tyrone Marghuy. He's
yeah,
a Ghanaian computer engineering student at the University of Pennsylvania, and he's building processors from first principles
yeah,
from discrete transistors. Um,
yes.
so Tyrone, thank you very much for joining us
Thank you.
today. Yeah.
Thank you.
Before we actually dive deep into the technical stuff, we want to get to know you a little bit, right? So my team and I, we did a little bit of research on you. Yes,
Mhm.
and we realized that you did spend some time living on the bus as a kid.
Yes, yes,
And I don't know if people actually know that there was a time where you actually dropped out of school.
yes.
Take us back to what life was back then and how that has actually trained your
Mhm.
mind.
Yeah, I think those times I rarely talk about them. That's because primarily the focus has always been about Achimota school, um, and hair policy and all of that. But before then, there was a story. Yes. So what happened was, I mean, we were born in Kumasi. We were born triplets,
Wow.
but along the way, my dad was severely ill. He had this high he had lung he was ill, let me put it down. I just,
Okay. Okay.
it so happens that we lived through it for about 2 3 years, that all the technical terms are just stuck in my head, but um we were about 14 15, or at least within the period of 14 to 16 17, just before Achimota school. So
Okay.
we had to stay on a bus close to the beach, and he was taking medication every day. So I think those were perhaps difficult moments, but we were very young,
Mm,
so it was kind of chill. We adapted, and how that ties back uh into everything else is that for the 2 years 3 years that we dropped out, it was like a free time for you to explore. You don't have access to high tech. You just don't have access to electricity, first of all. So it's a chance for you to naturally end up playing with books, playing with gadgets by the roadside, and trying to understand yourself better, because that was the only option.
Would you say that that period, right, actually taught you how to solve problems differently? Because I mean, from the research we did, you were doing amazing stuff, right? Like
Yeah,
uh,
I guess
one ex-
so.
one example being able to charge your phone with
Yes.
a hot a, a nail and a hot.
We've done things. We've done things in the past, and that was one of them. So on the bus, there is no electricity.
Mm-hmm.
And the point is, you cannot afford anything, first of all.
Hmm.
But we needed to make calls, we needed to charge phones. So when I was about 12, my dad worked on wind generators. So with him, I built my first wind generator at about 12, 13. So I knew what electricity was about. I didn't know the technical term, maybe time constants or anything like that. But I know if you want to charge something, you need voltage, and the generator can produce voltage. So the generator should be able to charge a battery. Now, this is a part that I make. This is like the first time I'm sharing, but so what happened was that every day the generator, I have to sit next to the generator and turn it like manually
What?
for about 2 hours to charge the phone. All the phones, because I had put LEDs in the bus, like different LEDs in different places.
Mm-hmm.
And these LEDs were running on mobile phone batteries, which I found by the roadside. Everything was found by the roadside. But the batteries ran down and you cannot really afford to charge them outside. So with the generator, I was like, I'm gonna be the, the savior, I guess. But that was my only job, to manually sit down, turn it around for like an hour, at least 2 hours every day, to charge the batteries and to charge the phone. So that was one of them. The soldering part also came in, and so many other different things. It's just once in a while that I share a part of that story. But
Wow,
yeah.
I think that's even more interesting than what I actually had in mind.
Mhm.
Wow, that's,
Yes.
I mean, for a young Ghanaian guy, to me that's impressive because I'm wondering what I was doing when I was that age. Like I was thinking
Yeah.
of other crazy stuff. But
Yes.
then away from that, right? So now
Mm.
we do know. I mean, most people actually know a lot about you already, right? So
Mm.
we don't want to go into that because that's like information they can literally find anywhere.
That is true.
When you say you build from first principles, like what does it
Mm.
actually look like when you are sitting down in your room at 2 a.m. working? Because I keep
Mm.
seeing that first principles, and I mean,
That's,
I
yeah.
do have a maths background, but I
Yes.
I don't really know
It's
what
hard
that
to. Yeah, I get that.
in your field. I don't know what that means. So
Mm.
take us through that.
Yes. So first principle, first of all, the main reason why I choose that is because of those times where we're staying on the bus, because you don't have a private tutor, you don't have anything. So
Mhm.
your only chance to understand anything is by your own efforts. That's it. If you don't understand, well, there is no other option. You don't even have internet. So what happened was that every time I would go to the library, there was a library next to where we were staying, which is the Accra National Library.
Okay.
And I think every time, like quietly when I'm sitting down, I tell myself that my most favorite part was always entering the library and signing your name, because to me I had dropped out of school, and so the fact that you get there, you write your name, and a part of me is whispering, yeah, I belong here. Like I'm counted as a person. So all those times were moments for me to learn everything from first principle. If I have to use it, it means I should understand it to the ground, the granular level. So in computer engineering, when we are looking at first principle, it is the same idea, that you are looking at it from the lowest abstraction level and perhaps taking it up. Because what happens is, if we are designing chips, I'm not an expert yet, I'm still a sophomore, but if we are designing chips, we don't have to design independent parts like this is an AND gate, or this is a type of gate. We don't have to do that. They
Mhm.
are existing blocks that will never change. It's like building a house. You don't have to invent new ways to make bricks every time you are building a house. You just get the bricks and put them together. That is the general idea, but I was not too satisfied with that,
Mm.
because if I start from a higher level, I don't, I just don't, I'm not used to that, to be honest. I'm used to, you don't know what you are doing. You spend more time with the material. If it will take months, years, you do so, and you learn it from the ground level up. So building the ALU was with discrete MOSFETs instead of the standard way. There are actual standard ways of doing it. But
Mhm.
with the MOSFETs, the lowest level you can go is perhaps building a transistor, which nobody does anyway. You just can't do it anyway. But that was the way for me to understand everything, given my background.
Okay, so if I actually understand you, there was something I was wondering before asking
Yeah.
this question, and that is that I mean most modern engineers, or like let's say most students, right, would simply just ship or use a field programmable gate array
Yes,
or just
FPGAs, yes.
something
Yeah.
which has ALU integration. But you decided that okay, I I want to like start from
from the
From
lowest
scratch, from
possible.
zero.
Yes. Mm.
Is it because you wanted to prove that, okay, I want to understand this technically, or you just want to see what it feels like to see it physically from the lowest level? What exactly was it?
I think it was my way of understanding, but honestly, it was far from proving that I could do anything because even at the point when I posted it, I left it on LinkedIn as a way, you build things, you need to keep a public record.
Yep.
That was it. And then it goes into my resume and next project receives. And so I was there in the classroom at some point, and someone said an article. Have I seen it? I said, no, I have not seen it. And I don't expect to have seen a headline about this. And
Okay.
that's where it started.
Mm.
So it's because I learned through building. I just like to learn through building. And so the ALU was an entry point for me to understand everything. Because I noticed one thing after building that a lot of the parts within an ALU become so clear that I wouldn't have expected such clarity.
Mm.
So it's like you talk about the ALU and look, if there's something that is mentioned about this ALU that I don't know, it probably isn't really in the ALU. So that was a level that I was close. I got to, I was like, this is interesting. So it builds that level of intuition about processes, which I love so much. But yeah, first principles builder. Yeah.
Okay, nice. So I actually don't know if you have a lot to do with software, but my next question is that do you think hardware engineering builds a different kind of patience as compared to software
Software.
engineers?
I think hardware inherently has software inside.
Mhm.
So if we look at the ALU project, notice there was a software stack, like there was the website
Uh-huh.
dedicated just for that. And from the perspective of a lot of my friends, they're like, did somebody build the website for you? I said, no,
I was
I
gonna ask
built
you that.
that.
I was going to ask you that.
Yes, I built that too. And that's because uh, a lot of the projects when I see on LinkedIn or somewhere, it's just some of them are so impressive, but it's just a bunch of code. I'm like, I'm scrolling on LinkedIn. I can't, take time to go and read the documentation just because I found it interesting.
Mm.
So I just wanted to cultivate a way where you can clearly explain or give an analogy, a very clear overview of everything. So hardware, software. I like software, but it it feels too fast for me sometimes.
Okay.
And sometimes do I have doubts when I see software. Software in the sense that, there are a lot of tools to help you build software, which is good. But from my background, I didn't have tools, and so I don't expect too many tools doing the work. Then I start to lose track. Did the tool do the work, or did I do the work? So
Mm.
that is like my quiet bias that I'm trying to fix. But hardware inherently has software where, for instance, you describe the hardware in its language, a hardware description language, for instance. So uh, and with computer engineering too, it's computer science and electrical engineering. So
Okay.
it was always part. I just don't want it to be my focus.
Do you think, well, I mean, now you just mentioned that when you see software, right,
Yeah.
there's this kind of bias and you don't quite trust it. But do you think Africa needs more software engineers or hardware engineers, in your own opinion?
In my own opinion, definitely hardware engineers,
Okay.
because before you can have software, you need infrastructure. And as of now, right now, we are still having conversations regarding energy
Mm.
because there are places where electricity is just not available. And if you don't have that, how do you even power hardware to start thinking of the latest AI agents and how you can implement loops in your system? It's just not going to happen. So, software, of course, is the latest one, But if we are trying to solve problems, at least in the African ecosystem, hardware first, hardware starting with power. If we can fix power, then we can start to think about our own processing engines. And now we can, put the software layer on top of it. But hardware for sure.
Okay, okay. There's one thing that I actually want to know because this foundation actually has a link to a lot of math students
Mhm.
because once
Yeah.
again, my background is in math.
Yes.
So I wanted to find out to the person who would be watching this, right? And if that person happens to also be someone who is coming from the maths background, not necessarily computer engineering, just
Yes.
maths in general.
Yes.
What role do you think that plays in your field? And is it even important? And can someone from a maths
But
background switch to your side if they
yeah.
wanted to?
Yes. I strongly think everyone could switch into computer engineering
Okay.
because if you look at the trajectory, building an ALU, I've only been here at Penn for under 2 years,
Hmm.
and the maximum number of classes I've taken is under 20, and some of them are closely related to each other. So if and I think if you're from a math background, you have an advantage because some classes you will not have to start from calculus one, which I did, or calculus two. No, you will start from basic electronics. First of all, what when we say power in physics, what are we even saying? How is it any different from current, or how is it related to voltage? If you start from those basics, then you continue to apply them. So the fact that you are starting from those basics alone, your math makes you, I don't want to say superior, but it makes you superior than the average person starting from zero, because it eventually it's a formula work, and math trains you to recognize a lot of these formulas, these patterns, and in fact use them extensively than perhaps we even do. So from a math background, I think computer engineering, you should do a math minor or something because math is such a beautiful thing to do.
True. I want to I'm not trying to like throw a
Mhm.
shade or
Yeah.
anything, but
Yeah.
when I was in UCC, right, some of the students from the computer science class, like I'll see some
Mhm.
of them coming to the boys in our class, like trying to, ask them to teach them something or like
Yes.
to ask them, okay, what's the theory behind this, right? And
Mhm.
I was wondering, specifically Ghanaians, right, should there
Mhm.
be some form of like a collaboration between computer science engineering students and those who are into the abstract mathematics, like
Mhm.
a collaboration to actually do projects, to do things like to
Yeah.
create, build stuff. Because I've also realized that what the computer engineering students can do, sometimes you're like, okay,
Yeah.
I don't know what you're doing, but okay,
Mhm.
that's cool. So do you think there should be some form of like pairing
Collaboration.
up? Yes.
Yes. I think so. I think there should be because a lot of the problems you need different backgrounds to solve at the same time. And I have so there's this funny story that I always talk about. I had a computer science uh friend.
Mhm.
So it was like three of us, computer engineering, computer science, and electrical engineering. So I happen to be in the middle. And then the computer science student asks, does the color of a wire affect the current it can transmit? I'm like, why are you asking this question? Because it's like asking when we paint a car red, does it go faster? No, it
Mm,
doesn't. But why are you asking this question? And at the same time, we gave this computer science student uh there was this Raspberry Pi that we wanted to SSH into it. And
mhm,
he on the spot, like in 2 seconds, he did it. Like, this is a huge mismatch. Because then if something is broken, it means if you have no knowledge, you're just not going to see that the the color of a wire does not affect whatever current it can transmit. So that alone is an experience that makes me think there should be a lot of even more collaboration in terms
mm.
of research, building projects, not for building sake, but to genuinely try to find the intersection between the two areas and solve more problems. That's what I think education should be about.
Yes, I also agree. That's exactly what education should be about. I want us to move a little bit back into African way of doing things, right? I mean, to pose the question in a way that's a bit generic and general, right? I want to ask you when a system fails us or it fails young people,
Mhm.
should we fight it or we should redesign the system?
Mm, that's
Mm,
a good question. I feel like I can't say redesign because that's not what I did in the past.
mm,
So I will stick with fight the system because for us to even be here, it's because people in the past fought the system. And I don't think fighting is inherently bad.
yeah,
If a system is indeed right, then even if you fight it, it should still remain robust enough to withstand everything,
true.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes think of it like a firewall or something. If you indeed have very secure systems, then whatever intrusion, as long as it's wrong, it shouldn't break things down.
Yeah.
So fighting shouldn't be the first thing, but if that is the only option, not physical, of course, there are ways which we still describe as fights, like
Mm-hmm.
legislation, trying to find ways to have conversations, all those still within the category of fighting. But yes, we should attempt to, fight for what is right. Not violence. No
Yeah.
say use violence, but find a way to get what you think is right. If you are right, you know. If you are wrong, you are wrong. You are wrong. It's just no other way about it.
Okay, I actually love that. That we, I mean, most of us, most young people, in whatever circumstances that they actually find themselves in, was because
Yeah.
the older generation actually fought for them to be there. Like,
Yes.
I mean, like it cut across even for women, even when we talk about gender, for when we talk about race, people actually
Mhm.
had to fight the system. Coming back to our space and what exactly we are talking about, right? Do you
Mhm.
think African students, right? Do you think we are not trained enough to question or to fight the system in quote? Because okay, I don't want to be disrespectful. I don't want to look a certain way. Do you think that's what is actually happening?
Mhm. I do think that is what is happening. In most cases, we are either afraid that we will disrespect leaders. We are just not willing to step out into a zone where things are uncomfortable. And I realized that during the time with the Achimota uh, court case, because the average response at some point it was in like layers.
Mm,
Okay, math, right? It was like in sine waves. So at some point you'd be at the top. Oh yes, he should go to school. When you reach the trough, then you're like, hmm. And what I noticed was the fact that people's solution or people's point of view was that if you want to get educated, they are going to waste your time, so do it. I'm like, that isn't what I'm looking for. I actually want to hear something like this that you are doing. Maybe the real reason is because of this uniformity that we want to get. And the purpose of the uniformity is so, so, and so, right? But the best you could get is we are creating uniformity and it ends there. Why are you creating uniformity? I'm not saying uniformity is a bad thing, but from that perspective, where I am out of school because of that, I am interested in the real reason why you are creating whatever uniformity you are. Because I've seen places where that rigid uniformity does not exist,
mm,
yet it's functioning perfectly. And so I'm interested, but you will not hear anything like that. So I think with that being one of the average things you could hear, it makes me believe yes that we're not really, or we're not inherently designed to face things the hard way. The best is let's just pray it goes on well, and
yeah.
rarely does it go on well.
Yeah, it's quite unfortunate because, like, when we look at our Western counterparts, right, you meet a young person and they're so full of this confidence, this like drive to ask questions, like, okay, you want me to do it this way? Why? Like, And
Mm.
that's to me, I think for me it was one of the cultural shock. Like, wow,
Yes,
okay,
asking questions.
yeah, this is going to be a very crazy one. But let's say you
Yeah.
had unlimited funding in Ghana,
Wow.
and yes, yes, and you were asked to create um maybe something in your field, or let's say a semiconductor ecosystem from scratch. Where would you start from?
That's a very good question. And it makes me think a lot because
Mm-hmm.
the semiconductor industry, it, like it needs a niche in the sense that I can say I'm building engines, which is what semiconductors are. But what are the engines for? Are they for trains or are they for aeroplanes? So I think I would want to, narrow it down to a specific area. And the area I would focus on, it has something to do with power. It has definitely has something to do with electricity because that was my life where there was no electricity. So what would happen is that you look around the entire city, days when there are lights, everywhere is bright, and the buses, there's no light around. You could see an LED inside. So I'm always passionate about electricity. So as it is, I would be interested in semiconductor technology that solves electricity problems. So if it's a smart inverter, the smartness will have to come from the semiconductor that we would build. So with unlimited funding, unlimited, so you can't even divide it because it's like dividing infinity. But a
Mm-hmm.
part of it and part of it would go into that industry of chip design for power,
Mm-hmm.
and then a part of it would go into setting up research facilities or setting up a robust research industry for engineers. Because I got here looking at my background of like zero. Sometimes I say it's a miracle that I'm even here at Penn, or I'm even out of the country, or even went to SHS in the first place. But some things are very foreign to me, like research. I have absolutely no idea I had no idea where to start from the very first time I heard about research. And I feel like a lot of individuals are perhaps in those shoes, at least in the Ghanaians I've interacted, which is totally fine. It just means we need a new narrative. So yes, I'll take research very seriously. And I would love to see a lot of great things because sometimes I see all these big science competitions and I
Mm-hmm.
rarely see Ghanaians over there. I'm like, they have a brain, they can think. I
Brilliant
don't,
brains too for that. Like,
yes. Like I don't like the idea that we have to say that yes, Ghanaians are capable. It's like saying water is important. Of course, water is important. We have to say that it is important first of all. So I would love to see a lot of guardians be there where it is not kind of a miracle or by mercy that they are there. They are there because they have that intellectual horsepower to be there. And that starts from some of these foundations, research and industries that support. So that's what the funding would do.
I love the fact that you laid it like step by step, and then you tried distributing the money.
Yeah.
Okay, what mindset do you think is actually holding back brilliant African students? Because we are talking about, being able to get out there.
Well, my opinion would be little believe in their own efforts.
Mm.
They perhaps feel they need, I don't want to, it's not a mentor that they are looking for. Like when you listen to some of them, it's not a mentor necessarily. They just want someone that I can't seem to uh intellect to think about who that person could be. But it's like they need someone who will do it for them. But from my perspective, I think if anything comes up in their minds that they want to do it, they should do it. They should just do it without thinking about the fact that, oh, if I don't meet this person, I'm not going to do it. Right. Back to the ALU project. When I finished the hardware part took like 90% of the time. And so I was left with the remaining 10%. I'm like, okay, fine. How do I communicate to people that this is what I've even built for them to even care about in the first place? I had to build a software. And in engineering, you cannot build an entire city by yourself,
Mm,
but it was vacation, everyone was, resting. I can't, get people to come and work on it. So I said, okay, fine, we will do the software. So I was working with tools I had never worked with,
mm,
right? But I had a mentor. I rarely speak about him, but he went to Achimota school. He is Japheth's Deborah. So he had already taught me how to work with like agentic tools. When you are building a software, for instance, you don't just write a generic prompt, for instance. You the things you should be interested in. So already he had taught me that during the summer.
mm,
So I had that there. I just had not explored it long enough. And so when I finished the hardware part, I was like, okay, fine, time to get these tools to use and put that knowledge. So most of the knowledge for the software part came from Japheth Deborah. But the thing is, he had no idea I was even building anything like that because he was done with his part. So I had to continue from there. And that
okay.
was it, yeah.
What do you think 13 years old Tyrone on the bus would think about you now? What would he think?
I think he would be surprised and perhaps be smiling and speechless because
Hmm?
the things that kind of makes me happy to a lot of people, it's almost useless. I remember the first time that I bought my own multimeter. To a lot of people, there are like hundreds of them in the engineering lab when you think about it. But like I have one that I know this is mine. That alone would make him so happy because
Oh,
at one point he wanted to buy one, but he couldn't. And so he had to build one with a wood, an LED, and nails and wires and a battery. That is one of them. Another thing is also getting tools, getting his own screwdriver, for instance. Of course, he wanted one, but he couldn't. So he had to use nails, So past Tyrone, looking at the fact that we are not necessarily fighting on ways to get a multimeter or a screwdriver, but in fact, we are sitting in an Ivy League classroom doing engineering and building processes from scratch. I can't imagine how happy he would be, but I think happy is an understatement. He would be like, this is a movie.
mm,
So, yeah.
mm. What myth, right, do you think people actually have about intelligent students? What's one myth?
I think that they have a horrible social life, like they're socially inept, which is not so true.
Are you
Uh,
are you sure? I mean, well,
well,
that's a little bit
that's,
relative.
yeah, but I think so. They assume
Okay.
everyone, it's either, and yeah, everyone is most likely socially inept. That is one. So they lack a social life.
Mhm.
And so all they do is study. That's redundant, but yeah, something along those lines that you don't have a social life, you're just existing, and all you do are books. And I don't know, this isn't a common one, but some of the myths I've heard is that it's a narrow road in a sense
Mm,
that you cannot really meet somebody who is uh, so good at maybe math and at the same time so good at dancing.
mm,
It either they are like 90% of each, but not 99%, 100%, or 100 of each. It's hard to find something like that, which I think is not so true.
mm,
From my perspective, it's an architecture. If a computer can run I don't want to mention, but if a computer can run, you know, application A fast, then it should be able to run application B of the same architecture. So the myths are two: social life and the fact that it's a narrow road. It's one thing and not both or more.
what specific architecture about what you designed are you most proud of? Like, what exactly was it? Like during the whole process, like you're like, you know what?
Yes, there is one. There is one. There are
Okay.
actually a lot of them, but there's one. So one of them was using the full adder also as a subtraction for subtraction. The idea is if you want to add two numbers, you
Mm-hmm.
add them together. And then there's a carry in. The carry in is also 1 bit, right? So if I'm adding 6 and 7, I add 6 and 7, literally. But if I want to subtract 6 from 7, it looks like I need a separate unit to do
Okay.
that. So one of the design options is to work in two's complements. Two's complements means you flip every bit, right? And you add one to it.
Okay.
That is like the negative of that number. So if you have like all in, okay, I can't, it will be too messy. But you flip every bit and you add one to it, and that is the negation of that number in two's complement. So the moment you add minus a to b, you're essentially doing b minus a, right? But on the hardware level,
Mm-hmm.
plus and minus are not that interchangeable. It is subtraction. So the part that felt interesting was choosing to use an XOR gate instead of a max. Because think about it. It means if I want to subtract, I
Mm-hmm.
should have two inputs at every time. So that input A to the adder is
Mm-hmm.
the normal raw input. And input B is the flipped version, which will act as the subtraction part,
Okay.
right? But there should be a selector over there, some form of a selector, which we call a max. But I felt like a max is expensive. That's how I was always thinking. A max is expensive. So what if you always use an XOR gate? An XOR gate so much that you XOR the input with either all zeros or all ones.
Okay.
So that if you want to add, you XOR it with zeros. So if it's one, it will literally pass through, like all the original values will pass through when you're adding. And if you are subtracting, you XOR it with ones and it will flip the bits, right? And then you actually wire the carry in also as one when you are subtracting. So the choice of using XOR to do subtraction, and I actually did research, like I did search that is there a better way, and they're like, no, this is the industry where I'm like, goodness, did I just do this?
Okay. Okay.
I remember my roommates are one is AI engineering and the other is finance. I was just talking to them because when I start working on this, I can do it for like 8 hours, 10 hours, and I won't even feel tired. So I was trying to explain to them, and then they're like, okay, that's impressive. I'm like, no, it's not just impressive,
You don't
guys.
understand.
But yeah, so those are choices using a full adder as a for subtraction, and
Okay.
then discovering that that is one of the industry ways. I'm like, wow.
We actually have an activity that we engage all our guests in. We want you to fill this for us.
I too can do engineering because I'm passionate and have the grit for it.
Thank you so
Yes.
much for not just sharing your journey with us, but also sharing how you think, how you process things.
Yeah, I think
And to everyone watching, to you watching this right now, excellence is not accidental. You have to build it, you have to test it, you have to refine it, you have to verify it,
you have to verify it
like
exactly.
how Tyrone did. Yes.
Yes, you have to
Yeah,
verify it's
yeah.
true.
Yeah. So this has been I Too Can Do, and we hope today reminds you that you too can build. Today's segment of I Too Can Do was brought to you by Ellie Small Foundation in collaboration with Inorganic Tutors Institute. If you enjoyed what you watched today or you were motivated by today's segment, do subscribe, give us a like, and follow us on all platforms. And watch out for more amazing content, more amazing materials that would inspire you, that would motivate you, and let you see that young Africans are redefining the scope